Hi, I just ran up the stairs a little out of breath. So great to see so many of you here on this call. Today is the Coaches Kickstart Club call for July. I'm Jen Barley. For those of you I haven't met before, nice to meet you. Welcome. We have a lot of new people coming on the call. Sometimes I do the calls with Karen Sullivan. Today she happens to be flying off to Chicago to do leadership stuff. And so it's going to be me solo. And the way we're going to do today is today's going to be all about how to get to the thing behind the thing, as we like to call it. So when a client comes to us for coaching, obviously they have their story, they have their scenario, they have what's important to them. As coaches, it's about how do we ask the right kinds of questions and tease out the points of tension for the client. So I have been fortunate to say that we do have a volunteer to be a client, and I'll set everything up in just a moment. I need a sip of water. They're not that high of stairs, but I ran up fast. Okay, so a couple of ways to interact. You can type into the Q&A box. You can also type into the chat box. And under the chat box, I'm popping those open right now. Under the chat box, you can do it through, all panelists or all panelists and attendees. So if you want to say hi, hello, ask a question, doing the chat is a great way to be able to do it. So here is the setup. So let's see here. I just want to make sure that... Okay, great. So Michelle is going to be our client, and we're going to pop her over in just a moment so that we're going to be able to hear her. This is the way that I would love to have this go down, is we're going to work on questioning. So what's going to happen is Michelle is going to share with us what she would love some coaching around. And we'll hear her introduction to her situation that's important for her to get some new insight and new perspective around. What I'm then going to do is toss it out to you guys, the listeners, to be able to ask a question. So what is your question that comes to mind? Or, it's just, if you could, what would you ask? And we'll hear from 4 or 5 different people with the questions. I'm going to teach during this. I'm going to instruct during this. I may stop, have some conversation around it. And if anybody gets stuck, you can say, hey, Jen, can you help me? And then we'll do that. So Michelle knows that this isn't necessarily going to be end-to-end fluid session. But what's going to happen is Michelle is then going to choose which question she wants to answer, right? So she's going to pick the direction that she wants to go, and then we kind of rinse and repeat. Key thing is today I need to be off no later than 12 minutes till the hour. I am doing an ICF webinar for the Gulf Coast chapter, and that starts at the top of the hour. So I have to do some technical stuff before that. So I think that's it. Any questions, thoughts, type them into chat. You can always raise your hand as well. We can get that. We have a lot of people on the phone, so the phone listeners just get to listen. They don't actually get to interact, which is kind of interesting. I'm learning that as we go along. And no, we're doing great. Are you guys there? Type me a hello, at least in the chat, so I can make sure that that's all working. Usually when Karen and I are doing this together, we have the back and forth, and she does one thing, I do another. Great. Oh, yay, Brenda. And Julietta and Kate, great. Thanks for letting me know you can hear me. Okay, so Michelle, remember, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to switch your settings. You're going to click on the bottom left that you would like the camera to be off, shut off camera. That should not be a problem at all. So just, I'm going to go ahead and change you. And great, perfect, that worked out great. So Michelle's here, a little bit incognito. We can see her name, which is totally good. And let me unmute her. So Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes, I
can. I can't hear her. Okay, hold on one sec. Let me just check one thing. Let me make sure my settings are correct. Michelle, try it again.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Yes, I can. Perfect. 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 Okay, good. So here's what we're going to do. So you guys just sit back, listen. We're going to hear what Michelle would love our help with. And then I'm going to sort of direct the whole conversation and where we go from here. So Michelle, I just want to say thank you so much for being able to join us and be a client today. I so appreciate this.
For sure.
Okay, good. So you have a whole bunch of coaches here that would love to be able to help you with whatever it is that you would like some help on. What had you volunteer today?
My life is in a giant cluster right now. And my number one human need, where they're tied, is growth and contribution at 100%. So making a contribution to my family or this world is huge to me. So in November, I got into a very serious car accident, and it changed my life as far as how I can parent, how I could provide for my household. And I was just getting my coaching business started, so that was another way of contributing. June 30th, I lost my job due to bankruptcy of my company after 23.5 years. So I do not contribute financially to my family because of the pain that I'm in. I do not contribute to a lot of the household chores and parenting that I did or tried to do. So I feel like a schmuck at home, not doing anything.
Got it. So I'm gonna do a little rephrasing of what that is. You're sounding a little bit echoey, and people are having some difficulty hearing you. Do you? And I'm wondering how we can test that. See if you can adjust a little bit. I hear clear on paper. So, Michelle, give me just a couple words so I can see if that improved things.
Is this better?
Oh, it is. Yeah, that's fantastic. So let me see if I got this, okay? So I'm going to give you a recap, and it's basically you've had a lot of things happen in your life recently, in the last few months, maybe since November, that has changed things dramatically for you. One of your top values and things that you really appreciate about this world is you love to growth and contribution. And right now, with the pain that you're experiencing, you're not able to help with the household chores. And with losing your job, you're not contributing to the household finances. And right now, it feels like everything is upside down. Did I get that pretty correct?
That's wonderful, yes.
Okay, great, 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 great. So thank you so much. And I got to tell you, that sucks. You know, I'm just gonna say that for you, Michelle, that's a lot of change, and you have a physical, there's some emotional components that go in with this, and it's about how do you navigate it all. And I can feel why you have such a disconnect going on for yourself. So I really appreciate you sharing this with us and being willing to help us help you through the process. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys, so you heard Michelle's situation. Maybe you heard it the first time, and maybe you heard it through the recap. What's running through your head? I want to know what questions. So obviously we're going to want to know, what does Michelle want coaching around? But before we even get to that question, what questions are coming up for you? Because there's a certain time, we don't have to go right into what do you want. We may need to understand the situation a little bit better. We may need to ask something. So you can either type your question through the chat, or please raise your hand and I will turn your microphone on. It also may turn your camera on, so you just have to say mute camera. But I'd love to know, what questions do you have? Let's hear from a few of you. Okay, so Lorna typed in, Michelle, and she said, what is your biggest disconnect? Okay, so that's one question. What is your biggest disconnect? Who else has a question? I would love to hear from a few people too. Cynthia wants to know, how are you coping right now? So how are you coping right now? What else is coming up? Stacy says, I'm curious to know if you see this as a long-term situation or a short-term situation. So I'm going to repeat that. Stacy asked, I'm curious to know if you see this as a long-term situation or a short-term situation. Sarah typed in and she says, what do you need the most right now? So what do you need the most right now? Brenda wants to know, how does this disconnect overall affect your value of contribution? So how does this disconnect overall affect the value of contribution? Okay, great. So those are the ones we're going to start with. And I'm going to come up with one too, but I need a moment to think because I've been doing everything. So Michelle, what I heard is you have a high value on growth and contribution. And right now, with the examples that you gave, your desire and need for contribution is not being honored. I'm curious, what's going on in the growth area? I said that kind of weird. But you know what I mean. I want to know what's happening on the growth side if there's two, right? So so let's go ahead and have you, Michelle, think about those questions that came through. A lot of other great questions still coming in, but we'll take those to start with. And what direction do you want to go?
I like the question about what do I need most right now.
Okay, great. So let me have you come a little bit closer to the microphone. Whatever you did last time worked out great. And then can you repeat that question?
What do you need most right now?
What do you need most right now? Great. So, and how would you answer that?
I need to find a way, any way that I feel I'm making a contribution.
Okay.
I think it has to be beyond just to my family.
Okay. Great. So I'm going to repeat that for people, that she needs to find a way to be able to make contribution. And she thinks that she feels it needs to go beyond just her family. Okay. Great. So who has questions based on that? And I'm going to write mine down so I don't forget it. Because I like to do mine last. Okay, so let's see what we have going on with that. If you guys want to raise your hand, feel free. I'll get you on the microphone as well. We're going to keep working on Michelle's sound a little bit, but I'm just good at repeating. I hope. Okay, so I think this one just came in under the last. Is this the first time you've dealt with this challenge? That was one question that came up. Who else? What question would you ask Michelle based on this? You can raise your hand or type it in. I'm going to ask mine then, because I feel like we have over 34 people on this call, so I feel like we should have tons of opportunities for people to ask questions. Okay, great. Stacy says, in general, how will you benefit by contributing to others? Julietta says, what would it be to go beyond the family? Excellent. What would it be to go beyond the family? I'm going to ask my question, Michelle, and it's, what will contribution beyond the family give you? So what will contribution beyond the family give you? Sarah typed in, what are the ways to contribute that you have thought of so far? And then you would, well, I'll ask her a follow-up question if you do choose that. So what are the ways to contribute that you've thought of so far? Lorna says, with the end in mind, what will it look like? Brenda asks a similar question. What does going beyond the family look like? All right, we'll start with those. So Michelle, close to the microphone again, or whatever that adjustment was, and which question would you want to answer?
Okay, so going beyond the family looks to me is being able to get my coaching business up and running from the point I left off right before my accident. I did some type of service to my client for the last 23.5 years. So besides receiving a paycheck, I received a lot of gratification. I'm in IT, so I'm constantly troubleshooting and doing, production support, performance tuning. So it's always a constant feedback and return in solving problems.
Great. All right, so I'm going to kind of just highlight that. That was better in sound quality, but just in case, that going beyond is the family is thinking about your coaching business that you had to put on hold. And in your past, for the 23 years, you've been working in IT, and you've gotten a lot of gratification through troubleshooting, problem solving, getting feedback, and having that return loop come back to you.
Yes.
Great. So great. Now people are given lots of questions. Kat asked, what in your previous career brought you the sense of contribution? So what in your previous career brought you the sense of contribution? Cynthia asked, given the present limitations, what are some ways to receive gratification just where you are? And I'm coming in and out on my audio quality, which is, I don't like. Let's see, what other questions are coming in? Why is contribution so important to you? Is from Kate. Why is contribution so important to you? And my question is going to be, Michelle, is if you were able to get any feedback right now, what kind of feedback would you like? So if you were to get any feedback right now, what kind of feedback would you like? Lorna says, what small steps can you start with? Brenda asked, what's the real issue here? She says with a curious smile. She says, I'm curious. What's the real issue here? All right, Michelle, what do you got with that?
So I can tie several of those questions together. Cynthia's about receiving the gratification where I'm at. Brenda's, what's the real issue? Your question, Jen. So my husband's very supportive. I could sit here all summer and do absolutely nothing, and he would be perfectly happy. So he's not worried about it financially. He's not worried if the house is a mess. He's not worried if he has to cook dinner or take care of the kids. He is very supportive. I think a lot of it has to do with, if I am not giving, then I am not worth anything.
Okay, great. Oh, no, I mean, I'm sorry. Yes, I don't mean that's great, but what I do mean is that's sort of what this is coming down to. And it's hard, right? So you have a huge association with when you give, there's worthiness there. If you're not giving, it doesn't feel as much. So I'm going to point out to everybody, that's a great place to ask. So now, based on what you just shared, what would be the most helpful area for us to focus on in this coaching session? So I'm going to stop for 1 second. So what it is Michelle gave us a lot. We got to get a little bit of a better understanding of her point of tension. So her point of tension is that growth and contribution are not being honored because of the accident that happened, as well as no longer working in a steady position right now. So there's a point of tension, and then we got more clarity around it. We found out some more information based on where we went. She just shared a really huge thing with us, right? So we heard it. So the thing behind the thing is, if I'm not contributing, if I'm not giving, then I'm not worth anything. What tends to happen for a lot of coaches here is they're going to start to go down that path. It's a good path, right? However, what we want to find out now from Michelle is what's going to be helpful. we can use that information that she just shared with us as the foundation for whatever she's going to find to be helpful. But it's important now to throw it back to Michelle to have her set the agenda for what it is that she really wants. And we, as coaches, are mentally taking the note, like, of saying, okay, great. So now we understand the perspective that needs to shift. So if she changes her perspective, whether it's about worthiness or whether it's about giving or whether it's about contribution or whether it's about her limitations, that's where the leverage point really is for being able to help her in this situation. So I'm going to toss it back to you, Michelle, and ask you, so based on everything you just shared, what would be helpful for us to focus on now?
I would love to be in a relationship with anyone I come across, whether it's my children, my husband, the rest of the world, where I feel worthy enough just by being present. I don't have to give anything in any relationship to feel personal value or self-worth.
Love it. Okay, hold on one second. I'm just getting down these nuggets. Great. Okay, fantastic. All right, you guys, so what do you want to ask? I'm going to write down my question as you type in yours. So based on what you just heard. Okay, so Denise would like to know, what would that look like, feeling worthy? Cynthia said, what can you discover about yourself in this period of hibernation? And she said, for want of another word, so that's maybe not the word, but during this period of timeout, maybe you could say, whatever. What else do we have? Keep them coming in. So while you guys are thinking, this is what's coming up for me. So Michelle, you said that you really want to, in any relationship, to be able to feel worthy enough just by being present. And it sounds to me like that doesn't happen very often for you. It's had to have happened at one point in your life, even if it was for just 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 4 days or whatever. And I'm curious, if you were to think of a time when you were able to feel worthy enough just by being present, even for a short period, when was that time?
Spending time with my daughter.
Okay, so spending time with your, what is it? Well, here, I want to go now. Okay, so spending time with your daughter, you've been able to do that.
Yes, she just loves me for me. She just wants me to show up because she misses me. She's in a college internship right now. So when she says, let's meet halfway, she just wants me to be there and not give her anything, just to spend time with me.
Okay. All right, that's great. So who has a question based on that answer? And I'm writing down my question. I don't want to lose it. Okay. Cynthia said, oh, I'm sorry, let me start with Sarah. Sarah says, what needs to change for you to feel that way? Cynthia asked, how can you start loving you for you? Brenda says, what would change about you if you could spend time with your daughter? Judy asks, what is it about you and your presence your daughter most appreciates? So what is it about you and your presence your daughter most appreciates? And I have two questions. I'm just making sure nobody wrote theirs in. Okay, so I'm going to ask two. The first one is, so you clearly jumped in on saying spending time with your daughter was the ability to really feel worthy just by being present. And she loves you just for you. What do you think you can learn from your daughter about being able to accept yourself just the way you are? I don't know if I love that question. I don't know if it came out right, but what can you learn from your daughter about accepting yourself in the present? We'll say in the present. The other question I would ask separately is, what is it about your daughter that allows her to accept you as you are? What is it about your daughter that allows you to accept you as you are? I'm going to put an asterisk by that one. I don't care if you choose that one or not, but later I'll come back to tell people what my follow-up question to that would be. So based on that, all those different questions, Michelle, which one do you want to answer?
Let me pause here for a minute and go over them real fast. I like the how can you start loving you? I mean, I like them all. They all take me down a different path, but I think that's the trigger one, is how I can start loving myself. Great.
Okay. So hold that thought. So here's what I just want to share with you guys. So I'm just going to, the inside of my head. So when I asked, what is it about her that allows, what is it about your daughter that allows her to do that? Part of that was the follow-up question could be, in what ways do you have the same characteristic, right? So realizing that whatever anybody's characteristic is in life, we have of it to a degree. So I just want to share with you where my head was going with that particular questions. I tend to not want to coach the person who's not here. So we're putting ourselves in Michelle's daughter's shoes. However, it was going to come back around to be able to connect directly with Michelle. So I just wanted to share what that is. So Michelle chose the question of how can you start loving yourself? So what is your answer to that, Michelle?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think I need to first realize that I am enough just by being present. And as a person, in any type of relationship, just being in that relationship without giving something, I'm okay.
Great. All right, you guys, where do you go from here? Okay, Cynthia wants to know, what practices can you adopt to fully love and appreciate your own gifts, talents, and strengths? I'm just looking for other ones. People are typing. You guys got some more? Come on, send them in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and throw mine. Oh, great. Judy says, what do you all already love about yourself? Brenda asked, what about these solutions is in your control? Sarah typed in, what actions can you take to put this into practice? So what will you start with? Stacy asked, what would loving yourself look like? So what would loving yourself look like? My question I have, Michelle, is what would have to change for you in order to do that? So what would have to change for you in order to do that? I'm gonna throw one more out. Kat typed in, if you were completely loving yourself, what things would you be doing, feeling, or accepting? So if you were completely loving yourself, what things would you be doing, feeling, or accepting? All right, Michelle, you're up.
I think the thing that would have to change would be the belief that I always have to give in order to be valuable. It's been a childhood pattern all through adulthood, but I've never stopped. So I think I just have to change my belief that I am enough. And I think that's what works so well with my relationship with my daughter, is it's so unconditional that it's amazing. I mean, I could just show up and nothing has to happen.
Great. Great. Fantastic. Okay, good. So Michelle just gave us amazingly great nuggets there. So what would you ask? And my challenge is I'm trying to make sure the questions are going with the right moment of pause. So Brenda asked this. I'm not sure if she asked it before or after, but I'll say it. If your circumstance doesn't change right now, how can you experience it differently? So if your circumstance doesn't change right now, how can you experience it differently? Cynthia wants to know, how can you disconnect from the notion that to receive love, you have to do and give? Let's see, what else you guys got? You guys are doing good with this. This is great. I like talking to people, but that's okay. The typing's working for now. It's all working out. Sarah says, tell me all the qualities that your daughter sees in you that make you enough. Okay, so my question is, Michelle, that you said that the belief needs to change, the belief that you always have to give. And this is from a childhood pattern that you have now brought into adulthood. And though I have met you before, I can't remember how old you are. So now that you're an adult, what do you want your new belief to be? So now that you're an adult, what do you want your new belief to be? Denise typed in, how can you duplicate the feeling from your daughter to others? How can you duplicate the feeling of your daughters to others? Kat wants to know how you could move from a head belief to a heart belief. And Pamela wants to know, I'll just do one more. How might you see your mere presence alone as the true gift you have to offer? So how might you see your presence alone as a true gift you have to offer? So based on that, Michelle, where do you want to go?
All right, so Pam's question and Sarah's question really trigger me. Tell me all the qualities your daughter sees in you that make you enough. That's very hard for me to accept, that someone would like me just for me. If I don't give something, no one would just like me just because.
So when you say that question triggers you, how does it trigger you?
I don't know, it hits very hard. Yeah, I really can't believe why someone would want to be with me. Like, my daughter wants to be with me because I'm her mother.
Right.
But if I wasn't her mother, would she want to be with me?
Okay. So it's a real heartfelt emotional trigger of the question coming up. Is it relationship only, or is it even something deeper than that?
I guess I feel so worthless that I can't believe anyone would want to spend time with me.
Yeah.
So I work so hard to give in all my areas, so I will justify the worth that people are getting something for me to give something back to me.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, Michelle, this has been going on for a long time for you. You said this is a childhood pattern that keeps repeating itself, and this belief keeps coming back again and again and again. And you can tell how deep it runs through you. And anything that we carry on and we repeat to ourselves, or we repeat in the way we show up, it just continues to create that pathway of the way that it is. The beautiful thing, though, is it can be different. Right now, you're a little bit stuck on how to be able to actually believe it but the beautiful thing is you want to. And so that tells me that there's a small part of you that already knows it's true, that you are worth everything just by presence alone, not necessarily by giving something. So it's how do we take that small percentage that deeply, intuitively knows it's possible, even if you don't know how, and be able to let that part start to grow and figure out where it should go. So that wasn't necessarily a question, but I just wanted to share that with you because I think there's real power in the desire that the unconscious already knows is true. So let me now toss it back out to the rest of the people on this call, and let's see what's coming up for you here. Kat says, if you could go to that sacred place within yourself, even for a moment, what might be there? Let me see what else. What else are you guys thinking? I'm going to throw out a question, and I'm going to be honest, Michelle. I don't know if I like the question, so, but I feel the urge to ask it. But I'm going to ask you specifically about it, and because what's coming up for me is what can you give to yourself in this moment? So what can you give to yourself in this moment? And I wrote that down, and we can talk about that later on, but let's see what else people say. Anybody else? Okay, Cynthia says, what new perspective are you willing to be open to? I'm going to throw out one more question from me. So I just shared all that I saw in that moment of there is an unconscious belief already formed that needs to sprout and grow and get bigger. When I shared that with you, what came up for you? So that's another way to ask that question. So Michelle, there's just a few of them there, but where do you want to go with that?
Let me read these and think for a minute. When I read Kat's question about if I could go to that sacred place within yourself, it's funny because my most peaceful place is I'm always by myself, totally alone. And I think it's just because I don't have to worry about giving all the time and making that contribution. It's, I don't know if that makes sense. It's effortless. I'm just there, and I enjoy who I am. I enjoy just what is going on at that moment. It's very peaceful for me.
That's really interesting. So you are just enough by just being present with yourself, is what you just shared with me. Yeah. Which is your ultimate goal to be able to get to. And when you're alone, you're there.
Right.
Huh. Okay.
It's very, very peaceful.
Yeah. What do you think, Michelle, makes it different with other people?
I do think it's a strong pattern from my father that if you didn't do what you're supposed to do, that he would cut you off immediately. So there would be no love if A, B, and C doesn't happen. So, and that went on since my early childhood to even my adulthood. If you don't respond this way, you're done. So I'm always thinking I need to give so I stay on that positive side of the relationship. To get the love I need to give.
Okay. Yeah, that's a tough one, right? To have someone so influential give you that message, and for you to hear that message, that it comes down to it feels like a trust that other people won't go away just by you being you. So, okay, so there's definitely a few themes here. Let me ask this, Michelle. When we first started, you came to the call saying that, talking about growth and contribution. Where are you now with everything?
Not so much a growth and contribution anymore. I guess I'm hit pretty hard to where I'm at with all of this. I'm very centered within on myself right now. The growth and contribution is not even in my mind. So it's how do I move forward with the piece of myself to my relationships?
Great. So bringing, yeah, with a piece of yourself to the relationships. And so you just asked yourself that question. What's an answer to that?
I think I would love to show up in the next encounter with anyone and just be, and not feel like I have to feel the void of, how are you? What do you need? What can I do for you? And just sit in a moment and let it happen.
Okay. So I'm just going to read, that broke up a little bit, but I believe I heard you, that you said you're going to show up in the next interaction with somebody and just be, not default to the old, what can I do? How can I help? Can I get you something? And my question is, you know, that sounds like I mean, all of this is a new behavior. It's new patterns. It's new dynamics. It's a new way of being, which takes practice. So let's say you're in this interaction with somebody and your goal is to just be and not give. What will you do when the urge or the instinct comes up to do something for the other person?
I would imagine that would be quite hard. I think it's going to take a lot of self-control to sit through that moment and, you know, deep breathing, to let it pass and not jump in to always save or give.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, it will take a little bit of self-control. It's not your default. It's not your natural instinct. So of course it's going to take a moment to be able to sit through it and not follow through on that instinct. So what or who can support you as you try this out with your next interaction?
My husband is very supportive. I'm not sure if he's a good person because he doesn't really care if I contribute to him or financially the house. He's perfectly already accepting me. Mm-hmm. But I know he would put my feet to the fire to make sure that I'm following up with this new tool or mindset.
Great.
I don't know, everyone else, I think I'm going to still feel like I want to help them. It's very hard.
Well, yeah, of course it's hard. You've been doing it for X amount of years, right? So yeah, but there's two things that are happening, right? So what I hear is there's the uncomfortableness of not feeling worthy in a situation, right?
Right.
There's also the uncomfortableness of resisting the instinct to help somebody.
Right.
So a lot of it is, they're both uncomfortable. So if you really want to get to the other side of this belief, which uncomfortableness do you want to sit with, if that makes sense?
The holding off and not helping somebody. I think I need a mantra just to tell myself in my head while this is going on that it's okay, I just need to be here. Something like that just grounds me to just be.
Great. So it's okay. I just need to be here.
Right.
Right. Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right, Michelle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort of stop the coaching right now. You're at a place where you've come up with the new belief that you want, your willingness to try it out. You have a mantra that you can play with, find one that really connects with you. But so that we have time to discuss for just a few minutes, I'm going to end the coaching there. Does that work?
It's perfect. Thank you. I'm shocked, but thank you very much.
You did great. You did great. There's a lot of energy that you have around this whole topic. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll move Michelle off and move her back to an attendee. So there we go. All right, you guys, if you have any questions, you can type them in. So a couple of things that I just want to highlight about that is that a couple of recommendations that I have with the coaching. A lot of people wanted to get to action really on. When she said that she wanted a new belief, people were, well, how can you do that? Or what's a small step that you could take? Or, you know, what's a strategy that you can put in place? We still had to give Michelle the opportunity to get to a new belief. So the when you hear a perspective that has somebody stuck. In this case, Michelle's perspective was that unless she's giving, she's not worthy. That we have to figure out, what does she want the new perspective to be? What is it that also another perspective shift is, it's going to be uncomfortable no matter what. It's uncomfortable to give in order to feel worthy, and it's also uncomfortable to be able to not do anything in the moment. What uncomfortableness does she want to pick? So realizing we still need to figure out her mindset and what she wants to gravitate towards. A couple of other notes. It's hard sometimes when I do this to actually write down notes as well. But one of the things that I always like to highlight is the looping process of saying, when you first started, this was about growth and contribution. Where are you now? So obviously we're at a big far away. To a degree, it's still about contribution. So her strong need for contribution gives her the feeling of worthiness. So they are still connected, but it went a whole different direction. What that helps Michelle to realize is connecting her own dots of her thought process and what was actually happening. So let me just scroll through some of these questions. So one of the things I like to do, I am a fan of what does that look like, and paint me a picture or tell me some qualities about self-love. I do like to keep questions, though, directed towards where Michelle is within this particular scenario and her relationship specifically to what it is that's going on. One of the things I did say at some point was talking about the childhood pattern. And I said, now that you're an adult, and I did that very intentionally. That was to be able to say, yes, I get the childhood thing. And I got to tell you, many of us have things that we've carried forward. But now we're at a power of choice. As an adult, what do you want your pattern to be? By saying now as an adult, it's giving this subliminal message that, hey, there's a choice here too. So any thoughts that you guys have running in here that you would want to say? I have to get off the call in about 1 minute to be able to jump on my other one. Was this helpful? Why don't we even do that? Was this even helpful to you? People are sending you big hugs, lots of love, those kinds of things. Okay, good. Good. You guys are good. Thank you to Michelle for sharing as well. People are saying it's great. Somebody really likes the now that you're an adult comment, to be able to throw that in there. Excellent. The other thing was about the support. So what or who can support you with this? And that's really good to be able to have your client always identify that. Michelle says, I'm overwhelmed. Thank you to everyone. Thank you. Kat says, thank you to Michelle for her vulnerability, and you, Jen, for your continual coaching. Definitely. Someone else said this was my first call. It was amazingly helpful. Fantastic. So I will post this in our Facebook group. And then if you guys want to put follow-up questions, you can, right? We can just I won't post it till a few hours from now. I'll put the video up, and if you have questions about it, we can continue the discussion. I don't necessarily like that I have to jump off, but I do. And I appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of the Coaches Kickstart Club call. I love these calls. I've been doing them for over 5 years, and I always learn a lot through them as well. And thank you all for being a part of my life. And thank you, Michelle, to be honest, for just being present with what you were thinking, what you were feeling, your experience, and the tears, all of it was just really helping you know what you already know is true, that you are enough, and just your presence alone is the biggest gift you can give anybody. So on that note, you guys, I got to scoot. I will talk to you soon. Bye.